internet yesterday and the day before, and what many of the leaders have been advertising, is what we're going to talk about here today. And it's talking about not how to slow aging, not how to counteract some of the factors of aging, not how to increase longevity, but to put you on the road to immortality, and so you can just fly along it. There's a lot to be said about this. This science is so emerging, and it is so new. I got onto it in 1988, and I followed it from that time forward. And many of the early discoveries that I made and that others had made, I'm basically researching the research of others, but that I made, carried through to today, to where the ancient Chinese ingredients that I looked at in Ayurveda from India, those ingredients now have been, or those basic products have been analyzed. They've found the active ingredients. They've been able to extract them, concentrate them, and then maximize them in testing to find out what the optimal amounts are for achieving whatever the ancients said they could do. And when you think about that, that's really quite an amazing thing, because here you have civilizations like the Yellow Emperor's book was written 3,000 years before Christ. And that one was a compilation of all the Chinese medicines that had been developed for thousands of years up to that point. So there's that piece of literature, and it's a great work. I've got it here in my office, translated, of course. But with that, it talks about so many things, and they had no electricity. They had no microscopes. They couldn't do blood analysis, any of those things. But so they did it the way that they knew best, and that was by observation. And with that, they became extremely skilled in determining what was the situation with the human body and what types of, through trial and error and some deduction, what types of ingredients could be used, or products or plants could be used, and in what combinations to achieve what the body needed. Now, the nice thing about that is the fact that in Chinese medicine, it's all individual. It's nothing like take a multivitamin, that type of thing, or take a calcium supplement. It was much more sophisticated than what that was. And so they would take a pulse in 23 different places on your body, and then they would analyze, follow the meridians, and then check a lot of other things out about you, and then they would make the diagnosis of what your body needs. And this is very important to understand, of what your body needs to actually function at its optimal level. And with that, the idea was not to fight the symptoms of it, but to literally provide the biological nutrients, the super nutraceuticals, the natural medicines that they knew in nature that would supplement the biological activity going on in the cells and in the systems of your body to bring it back to what they call homeostasis, which is optimal performance. So I picked up on that early, flew to China before people were really going to China, and negotiated with the army, who controlled everything, and got some formulas and brought them back and started to do it. Started to do a business of where I was providing this ancient wisdom, and I used to talk about health from the dust of China's past. And it really was that. But modern science was testing these things now, finding out they were, and I had found a remarkable discovery. I won't go through it at this time, but it was one that greatly extended the lifespan of animals and slowed their aging process down tremendously. Well, that's been embellished upon many, many times since there, mostly in science. But it's gone far enough now that we can take the information, and I was evolving with it over the years, and I appreciate what Laura said and that, but you know, I do have a God-given mind to do this kind of thing, and I know it's for a purpose, and it's automatic within me. This isn't something I'm striving to do. This is something I do every day because I believe in it so strongly, and I'm totally driven to finding these things out, bringing you products that you cannot get anywhere else in the world, not just so that we have an exclusive opportunity, the business opportunity is a great one, but really to provide you with meaningful answers in a world where really we are not really important other than as a commodity. And as you know, in pharmaceuticals, there is no money much money at all in making a product that cures some kind of a disease or affliction, because you lose a customer. So big pharma, most of the products they develop now are for treating the symptoms, because if you treat the symptoms continuously, you have a customer, and you're part of their business plan with it. Well, you're not exactly a business plan, are you? But that to them they are, to big pharma, to big medicine, to the FDA, to the regulatory agencies. Yes, you are. But no, you're not. See, you're a God-given entity, and you should have the right to know, choose, and use products that are good for you. And that should not be denied from you. But they were trying to do that. And in 1994, they wrote a law called DSHEA, and it's DSHEA. Now, I'm going to print some things and put them on my profile page, not on Facebook, because Facebook is becoming such a organization where they're keeping track of everything that you say and recording your conversations and monitoring your activities. And I think that's real infringements on our freedoms, and a lot of people don't realize that. But then I have 5,000 friends, and when I send something out, they'll only send it out to 100 or so, 150 of them, because they want me to pay for massive amounts of advertising to get all the friends that they originally got to join my profile page. But I don't believe in that kind of thing. I believe in freedom and being able to do it. So I've gone to a site which is in competition with Facebook, but they don't monitor, they don't keep track of your activities or any of that, and everything is encrypted, and it's called MeWe. That's MEWE.com. And if you go on there and you put, and you can see it, I advertise it on Facebook actually, get people to go over there, because now I'm not restricted. In fact, I'm free to promote a lot of different things and concepts that ordinarily I don't feel comfortable while doing on the other, because these people are gunning for us, not for us. They're gunning to get us, and I don't want that kind of thing to compromise what we can do. So with that, I'm going to publish some things on today that will be, and here's the problem. I don't want you to become a little Tom. You don't need to know all of these things. What I'm trying to do is give you basic concepts and ideas so that you can go and develop a business that can be very successful for you. That business is based upon a number of different things, but you're the most important part of it. It has the products, it has a compensation plan, it has the support, the information, all of those things to make it work, but you are the very most important component. So if you get from the literature that I publish, most of you just get a few bullet points and you get the concepts so that you have the confidence in what you're doing, then you can go out and really promote it, because people don't want to know necessarily how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And so that's the beauty of network marketing, because you can now take this information, and because of DSHEA, we are allowed to publish studies and articles on ingredients. And so you can look at those, and then it's called the DSHEA is Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act. So it's talking about dietary supplements, and then it's a Health Education Act. And what it says, you can look at the ingredients that are in a particular formulation and see what they do, and see what they do with the other ingredients in it, and then you have the right to make up your own mind and make the conclusion of if you think this product would be good for you. Would it be good for your heart? Would it be good for your brain, for your muscles, for your vision? Any of those types of things, those decisions should be your choices. But in 1994, Congress had to go and pass laws to do it, because the FDA, big pharma, big medicine, was trying to control of this, and all supplements they wanted to be sold out of certified stores like a Walgreens or a drugstore, a pharmacy of some sort. They wanted them pharmaceutically controlled. they're still trying to do that, but Deshay has set the road pretty good for us to follow and gives us the opportunity to publish these things so that you can choose and use the right products that are best for you. Now with that, there's a lot of products you can take a look at in the marketplace. Most of them are hardly worth buying. They did an analysis, I've told this before, about the top 200 selling products back on the East Coast, found all the major stores. They're in Walmart and Target and Walgreens and GNC, lots of places like that. And they found out of all 200 of the very top selling different products, not a single one had enough of the active ingredient in it be considered therapeutic. So what does that mean to you? That means you're buying a bottle of Flim Flam Scam. That's the way I see it. And I think many of you do too. But in reality, they take something that has been proven, and now because of abusing Deshay or something of this nature, they'll say, well, here's the product, here's what it can do, and it's in our formulation. The problem is it might not be in the right form, it's not supported properly, definitely not in the right concentration with it, that it takes so much to make it work. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and an eyedropper of gasoline, can you, in your tank? You've got to have a full tank to do it, and that's the way it is with these ingredients. So with Sizzle, my mission is not to make money. My mission is for you to make money and for the company to make enough to drive this business opportunity and to provide the most sensational products and the greatest compensation plan that has ever been developed together in sync, so that you, the most important component of this business, can be successful, happy, healthy, wealthy, prosperous. All of those things are at your fingertips, but it doesn't happen unless you do it. So we're going to give you everything to do and to do it with, but you have to do it yourself. We can't make income claims. There's big problems with that, and many companies have been doing that, and you've seen the videos over the years with network marketing companies, and they're sitting there in this beautiful home, and they're talking about their life. They had nothing. Now they found this business opportunity. Now they bought this beautiful home. They have a car. They have vacations. Yeah, but that's not for most people. But that's the way they try to play it to you. So the FTC has been getting heavily involved in companies now, and they prosecuted Herbalife, who paid $200 million fine. Now they're going after some other big companies for similar things. Jeunesse, Nerium, Vima, they've shut down with those tax because of income claims and compensation plan problems that they have. Well, I don't want any of that. So I have designed the thing. It's clear, it's clean, it's simple, it's dynamic, it is not unrealistic, and you can be paid disproportionately better for the amount of work you put into this that you would get in anything else, I believe, that you can do. And that's your opinion. So what's your goals? Is your goal to get your products for free? Well, that's good, step one. Sell enough. You buy the products at wholesale, okay? These products are spectacular, beyond performance, so you can buy them at wholesale. Number two, you can go through and you can retail them to customers. These are bona fidely products at prices that people will buy. And you can either sell them to them retail, or you can get them set up where they can automatically order them, and they can be sent to them automatically, or they can order them as you want. We can't even make mandatory that you get higher commissions for auto purchase with that kind of thing. What you're going to get is the convenience and the service, because all of these things have been tied into the corruption, if you will, and some of it over government regulations. But you have to play the cards with what's dealt to you. So we have a deck of cards in our hands, and we know how to play them the very best way, and we'll do it so that you can win big, we think, most of the time, if you will learn it and do it. That's the key to it. That brings us to what we want to talk about today. And I want to talk about how to not just put you on the road to immortality, but to fly down it. And there's really basically 4 things that I can tell you that are significant and important to this. Actually, the critical factors that are there. Everything else is an addendum to it in our product lines. with it. But the three most important products we have, actually four, but the first three is the age pill, TSX, and then a product we haven't named yet. We call it Product X. Those are the three most significant products, and I'm going to explain to you how they're going to work so you can understand it. Product X will be out in January, we anticipate. This is the most confidential product I think I've ever made, although it's not the most powerful. The age pill is probably the most powerful of any I've ever made, but it's at least equal to the age pill in what it can do and perhaps surpasses it. You'll have to judge that for yourself. But the combination of the two of them together is not 1 and 1 is 2. It is 1 and 1 is 100. It is just dynamic what this does with the age pill and with TSX. So here's how it works. The first thing is I can't make a claim according to the FDA. In fact, some things are you'll see we're going to tighten up some things that we're doing, but the FDA was they just did an audit on us. This wasn't anything like a raid, it was just an audit. And they review how you're doing things. Well, we meet good manufacturing practices, and we have the highest standard of that, and we passed it, of course. But the things they were reviewing, they say, on Facebook or a place like that, if you see a statement that, as the company or one of the employees, if you see, not you as distributors, but as the company, if you see a statement that somebody's put on about something, an income claim or a product claim of what it did for them, and you simply hit the like button, that is, the FDA considers that as the company making an illegal drug claim by simply liking what somebody had put on there about this product because I've got so much more energy. Boy, I can work out at a higher level. I'm thinking so much more clear. We click a like on that, and they'll say, oh, you've made an illegal drug claim. Now, I don't know if that will really hold up in the courts, but I'm sure it's going to get there with somebody. I don't want to be the one to do it, but I think it's going to happen because it really goes against cliché and it goes against decency and common sense is very uncommon, especially within the government, as you know. So anyway, with that, we're going to talk about these, and there's another aspect that you should understand that's very important, and that is the scientific information that validates the ingredients that are used in our products. And here's the point that you need to understand about this. We'll be putting disclaimers, and we do already, on it, but basically it says this. You can look at the different ingredients, and they've been proven to do what they do. Many of them are animal studies, mouse studies, higher mammals than that, but there are so many things that are common and symbiotic there between a mouse and a man or an elephant. Whatever it is, we have certain things that are absolutely the same. Sometimes they're not. But the important thing, if they have it so it tests on a certain animal model, that doesn't mean it's going to test on a human model. If it does test on a human model, I'm explaining all this so you have a better understanding of it, and then you put it in with other ingredients in the formula, then the FDA says, well, maybe the other ingredients might have counteracted the formulation, so you can't make a claim even though you have an ingredient with human studies that are on it. So the key to all of this, how are you going to get around it? Well, what you're going to do is DSHEA allows you to show the scientific studies, to show even magazine articles or things like that that are written. You can do it. We can't, but we can provide places where you can get this information. Then, as says the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act, you can turn around and take this, make your own conclusions, show people, let them make their own conclusions or decisions with your suggestions, with your testimonies, and you can build your business that way. But rather than say it stimulates, it activates, any terms like that, they have to be replaced, and we will say things like supports, enhances, embellishes, things of that nature. And like with skincare, it's the same. There's not a skincare product hardly. There's only one that I know of really that is all trans retinoic acid. It has a prescription drug claim, so you can make a a claim on it doing something to make skin younger, and yet I have found compounds that are, I found a compound that is 7 times more effective than all-trans-retinoic acid, and it doesn't have any of the irritation, the side effects with it. But I can't, and it's a base, it is a retinoid like it, but I can't make those kind of claims because of the fact that this ingredient has not been tested and approved according to pharmaceutical standards. And that's not an easy thing to get. It takes about 15 years and costs somewhere, if you get off on the cheap, it's $1 billion, but usually it's about $2 billion to get a new drug approval. Well, who can put up $2 billion over 15 years before they can sell a product? Only big pharma. And that's the reason the prices are so outrageous on prescription drugs, because they have a right to patent them then for 20 years after that, and they can charge obscene prices for you to get these products that are essentially treating your symptoms rather than the condition itself. So that gives you a premise of what we can and can't do with this. But now let's talk about how to fly along the road to immortality. You know, there's actually, immortality in this earth has already been attained. There are a number of organisms that live on Earth that never die. Some of them may go over 1 billion years old, and they just keep living and living and living. And how is that possible? Well, aging isn't a biological process, really. Aging is a matter of it's not a matter of biology. It's a matter of physics, and it's decay and degeneration that occur over a period of time. That's what aging is. So if it's not then therefore it's not a disease. And therefore, if it is a physics, that means it is decaying, and accordingly it is degenerating. Those are principles of physics. So if we can end the decay and support, and here's the key word again, support regeneration with the body's own biological system so they can function at their most optimal levels, then we can really achieve something that can do has tremendous potential for your body to repair, to regenerate. If you, and this goes back to the Chinese philosophy of where they said, and of course I'm talking about 30-some years back when I first started researching this, but the Chinese says the human body has the ability to live to an incredible age at a very youthful level if you provide the proper nutrients and remove the toxins and the waste. Now, if you think about that, and you ought to go back on this tape and copy that one down, because that is true. And a couple of the people that on these original discoveries I made and went to China, they lived, 2 of them lived almost 200, well, one lived over 250 years, and the other lived just under 250 years old. In fact, one died, I think it was in 1939. We've got his photo. We've used that. And I think it was 256 with that. And he's got a photo through his lifetime. And in China, they celebrated his 150th year birthday and his 200th year birthday. Isn't that amazing? They've got those records. But that was because the things they were putting together were based upon reality observation. Now we've been able to isolate those, and we can do even more with them, and we found other things too that go together. And when you put together a formulation, if you have a magic bullet, as people call it, I mean, that's really, in a way, kind of asinine. If you look at some of the products that have been out, like mangosteen juice and noni juice and the acai berry, those types of things, yeah, they have some properties, but they're good in some ways, but they're so limiting and non-existent in others. So what's the answer? The answer is to have a formulation based upon a myriad of ingredients that are all supporting the same mission, but doing everything that needs to be done. And that's what we've done with the Age Pill, with TSX, with Product X. And the 4th product that we recommend with it, and which we'll talk about, is how do you power it? How do you power the earth? What creates the storms? What makes grass grow? The sunlight. But the sunlight contains hydrogen. And the sun is a ball of hydrogen. And it goes hydrogen to helium. When it's hydrogen, there's a burst of hydrogen that comes out, and it's happening just in milliseconds, coming out. So we have a continual stream of hydrogen energy that comes to Earth. That hydrogen is converted into organic matter by plants, and then animals eat plants, and people eat plants, and animals, and etc. But the hydrogen is always there, and it always came from the sun, and it goes into every single cell in your body. And once it gets in there, what it does, if with the right it's the smallest atom in the universe. It's the smallest molecule known in the universe, and so because of the smallness of the size, it can go through any tissue, even lead. With it, it's slower getting through lead because it's more dense, but think of it like a screen door on your house. If you have a screen door, the wind blows through it, you get some dust and things like that, but a fly can't get through, or grass or leaves or nothing else like that can come through it. But because of the small size, dust can go through it, and other types of toxins or odors or anything that way. Well, it's the same principle with the cells in your body. Nothing is as small as hydrogen. Therefore, hydrogen can go through anything and everything. So we have developed the H2 stick. It converts diatomic hydrogen water. They say that it takes about a half a part per million to be effective. Now that shows the power of hydrogen, and then you get up to about 1.5, and that's about where most machines and things will max out, but usually they're around 0.5 to 1.0. And here we have a product come along, so more is better, you bet your Beppy it is. And so as a consequence, I looked at this and found the ways to react a number of different ingredients, safe, natural ones that you want in your body anyway, to react them with water, because water is made up of H2, that's 2 hydrogen atoms, and oxygen, H2O, that's water. So if you can split the oxygen off the hydrogen, then the hydrogen is free, because see, it's very bound with water and very stable. But when it's broken free, then it can penetrate into all of the cells. It goes down into the cells, and it's probably the most powerful antioxidant possible through the human body for detoxifying. But it goes in, and that enormous energy from the sun is going to all the parts of your body in there and providing hydrogen that the body is looking for, that it's trying to get from either air you breathe or especially food and things that you can convert through your digestive system, which is the main source of that type of thing. But now here you get dissolved hydrogen, diatomic, stabilized hydrogen in water that penetrates. It doesn't have to go through your lower intestinal tract. It'll penetrate right through the stomach and go through. So as a consequence, you have an enormous power source going to every cell of your body. Well, power needs something to run. I mean, you can have a powerful gasoline, and you can have a little weed cutter engine that you're doing your lawn trimming with. That's not going to power your car, even though gasoline can power your car, but it needs the right vehicle to do it in. And so that's what the cells are made up of in different components and different biological systems. So to empower it with hydrogen gives you a potential energy source, and that's how we have to say it, that the body can take and use through its own natural biological processes to provide tremendous amounts of detoxification and free radical neutralization, antioxidant power, all of those things that you want, and then to become a part of the energy chain that the cells are taking in. So you have ingested it. This isn't a synthetic medicine. This is a natural thing that came from the sun, and we're converting it to be released into your body just as your body does it, but on a more spectacular scale. But we're not doing 0.5 to 1.0. Our tests are showing we're coming out somewhere around about 15 ppm. So it's enormously powerful and gives you so much. In fact, we're trying to work on some testing, so I don't know if it's so important, but so that people can see just how incredibly concentrated this is in the water that you're drinking. So anyway, there's your power source. Now, what are you going to power? Well, the body's made up of cells, okay? Cells make up tissues and systems and organs and the like. And all of that is created from a single cell at conception. That cell at conception, sperm and egg unite, and it creates a single cell embryo that starts to grow. Now, within that is all the power that God has put into life here on earth, everything to make it happen. And from that single cell within the chromosomes, the DNA that is within that single cell, it starts to divide and duplicate. But it doesn't do it randomly like a cancer does. It does it in an organized fashion because that's the way God designed our DNA to work. So it regulates what we do. And this first cell is a stem cell. And what does it mean? The stem, if you think of a plant has a stem and then the fruit comes out from it, and that's kind of the same process. The stem cells create other new stem cells according to their DNA code, the epigenetics of it, they call it. And then with that, those stem cells create the regular functional cells within your body, which wear out. And it's just like anything wears out, because remember, aging is decay, degeneration. It's physics, and so they wear out with activity. So in your body, from that single cell, when you're an adult, you've got about 200 different categories of stem cells that has been pre-designed to be there, and they produce everything in your body, from eyes to toenails to eyelashes to skin to heart, liver, lung, brain, all of that. And there's different types of stem cells dedicated solely to the function of whatever system or organ it is in. So those things are basic. I hope I'm not getting too far afield for it, but I'm trying to give you in as much of a layman's terms that I can, practical ones. You don't need to learn these scientific terms, but there's a few that's good to know. But anyway, with it, I'm trying to just make it comprehensible for you. So if you turn around and you take these stem cells, they're really quite multifaceted and they work together. Of the 200 different types that are throughout your body, 67 of them are found in the brain. Now the brain only weighs 1.5%, about 1 point in TWs, it might be less than 1%, but nonetheless it's about 1.2 to 1.5% of your body weight, and yet it consumes 30% of all the oxygen you take into your body. Why is that? Because it's where the electrical energy that runs everything is generated from, although cells produce their own electrical energy too, but it's all run through this myriad of neurological systems, and they think there's 3 and now maybe 4 layers that they didn't even know existed. That's all found within the last year, and they found that every single cell in the body is interconnected with every other cell in the body, and it all goes back through the brain. That's just overwhelming to believe, because you've got 40 trillion cells in your body, and here every one of them is interconnected to each other back through the brain, through the neurological system. So in order to monitor all of that activity, and you have 60,000 calculations going on in your brain right now as we speak. So that takes an enormous amount of oxygen to oxidize the fuel source, to create the energy to make that converted, and the energy is biological hydrogen. It's converted to electrical energy. So you can see how powerful hydrogen is, especially as you're getting older and your body isn't as functional to be able to produce it the way that it is. Why? Because it is into decay and degeneration, a matter of physics. So if you can supplement the hydrogen, you're going to have much better performance with what you got. So that's saying a lot about hydrogen. But now let's go back to the basic fundamentals. If you are based on stem cells that are replacing cells, like the cells in your intestinal tract, in your stomach, because of the harsh ashes, they only last 6 or 8 days, and they're destroyed and they have to be replaced. So you have massive amount of activity producing the lining of your stomach and all the different structures in it to digest food, because lifetime is so short. Now, heart can be like 3 years. It can last a long time. Brain cells are really quite unique because the enormous oxidation, if 30% of all the oxidation is taking place in 1.5% of your body, that means there's a lot of rust. Oxidation is rust. And that's what's happening. Things combine, they oxidize, they deteriorate, they break down, you're decaying, and as they decay, you start degenerating because your ability to function goes down. So there's been a remarkable discovery made. It came really out of this ancient science and went back through the Yellow Emperor book, brought through, studied, researched, people looked at it, and one of the, I have to be careful about, we can't even say what organizations do it, have done the research with it in some cases because they're trying to patent it and to find a synthetic molecule that can make so they can make a drug claim and make a flippin' fortune off it, where the natural thing will work better with no side effects, and so they don't want their name associated with it because they have a vested financial incentive to make a synthetic rather than develop a natural. Well, we're just the opposite. We want to bring out a natural that works much better than the effective, than the synthetic. We want it to become have an enormous amount of power, a very low cost, and a synergistic effect, not just a one single thing. Something say, oh, this helps to lower high blood pressure. Okay, well, what else is involved with high blood pressure? I can tell you a number of factors that are in that. Don't you want to address all that, or just want to try and do this this one? And that's usually how pharmaceuticals are, but not with us. So what happened out of the science is they found one of the leading research institutes in the world. You would all know it. And they came out and they called this ingredient that they isolated, and it would develop an ingredient called NAD+. Now, the NAD is just an abbreviated name, and I won't go through that. You can find out what that is. But the plus stands for hydrogen. So it's the plus sign, NAD with the plus sign. The plus sign is mean to that NAD molecule, it has hydrogen added to it. And that is the energy molecule of the body that drives it. And with that, as you get older, your production of NAD goes way down. Why? Decay, degeneration. That is going down. And so with it, the cells are taking, if you can imagine stem cell, that your stem cells, 200 and some categories of them, how many there are is probably about 1.5% of your body is stem cells. And so it has to produce those 40 trillion cells that are wearing out and continually being replaced. Well, when that happens with it, you have that cellular division, and that cellular division takes in nutrients because you have to build a totally new cell, and that is all controlled within the cell in the stem cell only, because the chromosomes with the DNA in the stem cells are different, and they have telomeres on the tips of them. It's like the tip of your finger would be called a telomere. The chromosomes in the replacement cells, the functional cells, are identical to the ones that are in the stem cells, except they have no telomeres because they wear out and they need to be replaced. But every time a cell divides or is going to divide, telomeres, there's units of them, and they start to bleed off in an organized epigenetic way to where they form the structure so they can weave the new chromosomes, build the entire new cell, and when it gets to a certain point, it just divides and goes. Well, when that happens, that's created a lot of oxidation to do that, tremendous amount of energy to create that new cell. And with it, a lot of the structures within the cell themselves are getting oxidized, rusted, if you can think of it in that term, with it. So when that does occur, then it's like a piece of steel rusting away till it's nothing and not functional. That's what's happening within the body. But in addition to that, you can't build a house without wood and electrical and plumbing and concrete and all those kinds of things, right? Well, the cell need all of those kinds of things too in the form of nutrients, and there's a lot of organella within a cell or a stem cell, either one, and it takes a tremendous amount of a wide variety of nutrients processed to go in to build it. Well, as it's built, once it's done, there's cellular garbage that accumulates. In other words, the cell divides and takes off with it, but there are accumulated residues that the cell has to get out. Unfortunately, some of these are they're fat soluble. Now, a lot of them are, but there's one type of fat soluble one where it just sticks together, and as it starts sticking together, it gets too big to be secreted out the orifice. Just think of it as the drain in your sink. And so your sink will drain it down. But if you had a big ball that was there, a big ball of fat or something sitting in it, no, it just sat on it, wouldn't do it. And that's what happens within the cells. You start building up the cellular garbage. It's called lipofuscin. That's the technical word for it. And it starts gunking up the cell. But more than that, it accumulates lots of toxins, too, within it. So it's very loaded with toxins which do damage, especially heavy metal toxins and things like that. So the longer a stem cell lives, the more lipofuscin or cellular garbage develops within it. Now, the other thing that happens is the oxidation is taking glucose, the sugar, and it's just like in a car where they take gasoline, that's the energy source of a car, and they oxidize it, a spark ignites the oxygen and releases the energy from the gasoline. Same principle happens within the cell. So it goes in and the glucose comes in, the cellular gasoline, so to speak. The oxygen's there, and a spark ignites it. That spark is triggered in stem cells by the telomere units. And so this is a very interesting combination there, because now when you have oxidized glucose, you get the energy, but what happens to it is glucose, now it's oxidized glucose, so it's like plaque on your teeth. It's the same principle. And that plaque gets secreted out, but a lot of it doesn't because it has a molasses-like texture to it, and it starts to accumulate on the internal surfaces of the cells, and it starts gluing them up, and pretty soon it will harden, caramelize, and then they become non-functional. So now if you take a look at your cell, it's getting worn out from oxidation, it's full of cellular garbage, and it's getting plaqued up. And what happens is the functionality of it goes down, and you start in a state of decline because it is wearing out. And as the stem cells wear out, that means they produce a lot less replacement cells. As the telomere units get consumed up, that means it doesn't tell them to ignite or to divide as fast, and there you are. You're on the slippery slide to a premature death. I say premature death because the average lifespan is now somewhere in the best countries around 80, and the potential of now they've mapped the human genome is about 150. But now even science is looking at that, and I agree with it. And Aubrey de Grey, they just had he's the world's leading researcher on longevity and aging. He said the person born today should be able to live anywhere between 2 to 400 years of age because of what we have now and the advances that will be made during their lifetime. I'm totally bought into that. And I mean, I'm off the farm, folks, so I don't buy a pig in a poke, and I really take a look at these things and make what I think is a logical conclusion with the information that I have. And I truly believe that we now, wherever you're at in your life, you have the potential to at least double your existing, the life span that you have left, and perhaps even triple it. Who knows? But that's just an estimation. I can't make that claim. It hasn't been proved to do it, but we have the ingredients to support your systems to do that. So here comes the age pill. And the age pill enters into the stem cell, which is now wearing out, declining. And when the age pill comes in, we have 3 factors within it. And so within it, there is a product to support the body's natural processes. Now here's support again, to remove glycation. There is a system in it to support the cell's natural systems to break down the cellular garbage, the lipofuscin, so it can decompose those, react them into something else, help to form enzymes because it does it nutritionally, see, but it's super nutrients. These are nutraceuticals of immense power, and they do that, and they clean up the plaque, they clean up the lipofuscin. That is the theory behind it. That's what we hypothesize that happens. So now that happens, but now the other thing is NAD production has gone way down, and it is what they call from this university that discovered it, which comes out of the Chinese medicine, they call it the immortality molecule. And so now when you add the things in that can feed the biological systems, and there's 4 different ways to do that, to create more, at least that we know of, to create more NAD+. And so there's a few companies putting out a couple of things. They have one approach, and they're reasonable. We have 4 approaches, and they're collectively, we think the power is much greater than the sum of the parts. So we have the ability to provide support on an intensive scale for NAD to bring it more. Our goal is to support the body so it can bring it up to homeostasis, or the maximum efficiency level. So now what does that do? When that occurs, then the cell has the ability, just like the Chinese said, to repair, regenerate itself, and it can do that if you provide the proper nutrients to it and we get rid of the toxins and the waste. See, we have done just exactly that. So now cells, if you think of like going down a slippery slide, when you first sit on it, you don't go very fast. By the time you get to the bottom, you're really moving. That's the way it is on the death curve. So these senescent stem cells, you've lost about 20% of activity by the time you're 20. That's quite amazing. But you've gone from 1 cell to where you've got 40 trillion, so I mean that's a lot of wear and tear. After that, it starts to accelerate. By the time you're 40, you've lost about 50% of your stem cell activity, and when you get down between 60 and 70, you're somewhere down between 2 and 5%, they estimate, of stem cell activity. What does that mean? It means stem cells aren't making new cells to replace the ones that are being lost, so they're being lost faster than they can be replaced, and that is degeneration. Why is that happening? Because of decay. See, so those 2 physical conditions are what comes in. So this is the biology, but it's the physics of biology in the processes at work. So now if you can take and you go into the cells, and if you can provide, it already has the systems to operate, to repair, to regenerate, to create. All those things are there, and you can provide the proper nutrients to more closely maximize or epitomize what it needs. Then you're going to have a real response in taking those stem cells that are on the slide to death and to turn them back up. As they repair, as they regenerate, as they start to create more, then what happens to you? You become more than you were. You have a ratio of old cells to young cells. You have a ratio of stem cells that are in various stages of deterioration. And on the other end, you have a whole number of stem cells that have become dormant. They're the real dangerous ones too. And that's the other thing we're going to talk about here today. So now if we have the stem cell, we have the age pill going in and doing all of that. Then we have TSX, because telomeres, you need to maintain long telomeres because they're igniters. They're the ones that tell how quick to duplicate and how often to duplicate and ignite it to happen. So we have TSX you add in there so that it is the super nutrient for telomeres to remain long. That's the theory behind the idea of it. And while our products haven't been tested so we can make those claims, you can certainly look up the ingredients and make your own decision on that with it. But with that, if you get the telomeres so it's dividing fast, the cell is back to where it's restored itself to where it was like a young cell again, what happens? If it's spitting out a cell every 10 days and suddenly it starts producing one every day, what do you think is going to happen to your muscle mass and your tissue mass, your organs, and all those kinds of things? They're going to increase, and that's the theory behind it. Now, what happens is there's a lot of stem cells. If you're sitting there at 40 years old and you're about 50% activity, you probably you have close to 50% that have become dormant. And dormant is bad for stem cells because they're non-functional and they want the body to get rid of them. So as a consequence, dormant stem cells, when they're in declining, when they are aging and deteriorating and decaying, it's called senescence. When they become dormant, it's called senescent. They are no longer functional. But what they do is they're not dead, and they start producing toxins, the worst kind of toxins, the ones that cause the most terrible diseases and accelerates aging even more so because of this accumulated number that keeps growing of dormant stem cells. So now you have less stem cells that are active as you get in that part of your life. As you start turning 40, 50, you have less active ones than you do dormant ones. The actives are going down, the dormant ones are increasing, and they're oozing the toxins that are creating so much harm within your body. And why are they doing that? Well, the reason they do it, scientists think, is because they trigger the immune system to come in, identify that toxin, and through a natural process called apoptosis, to cause it to commit cellular suicide. It's part of the way our DNA and everything's wound up. So as that happens, then those stem cells can be removed. But they're like, so what do they remove? If you remove those, you remove the toxins. But here's the beauty of it. It's just like, I tell the example of if you want a rose garden. You can have a lot of beautiful rosebuds and blossoms that are out there on it, but over a period of time, you don't have so many because they produced it, they've withered up, they've died, and they're dormant, but there's a bulb there. But if you see that happening, if you clip the bulb, it will grow a new rose. And you can do that all the time, and the rose garden will always be full of beautiful flowers. It's the same principle, we believe. This is what we theorize, and other scientists are theorizing, that these dormant stem cells are the roses without the blossoms in theory, and they can, if you provide the proper nutrients to the systems, you create a system which is now, the next term, is called senolytics. And senolytics takes those cells, gives them what they need so that they can self-destruct. The other problem you have is the immune system becomes, as you get aged, it becomes disoriented. In fact, they're killing cancer cells all the time in your body. It doesn't matter what your age is. But by the time you get fairly old, they have become so worn out, decayed, degenerated, that they can't identify it well, so your cancer cells can get away from you, as others do. But if you bring that immune system up, and if you have the senolytic agents that are in it, to support dormant stem cell replacement, naturally occurs, but takes these super nutrients to make it accelerate. Now you start repopulating that field of dormant, dead, toxic, not dead, but dormant, toxic, non-functional stem cells, senescent stem cells, and they can become new young cells again. It's like a bud that can blossom out into a flower, and that's the way the thing works. So now you're talking about the three big systems. Let's recap. The H pill to go in and support it, produce NAD, take care of glycation, lipofuscin, oxidation, all of those things. Then you have TSX to come in and to feed the system so the telomeres stay long, and that's just like, think of it like a rubber band on an airplane. You can wind up the propeller of it, and when it gets a lot of pressure and you let go of it, it flies very fast. But after it flies for a long time, then it gets unwound, it loses its energy, and it goes down and it crashes or lands. Well, but suppose you could keep that rubber band wound tight all the time. Then it would fly on and on and on unless it hit something with that. But with this kind of process that we have going, you can actually support long telomeres, so that rubber band, in theory, as a comparison, is always there and really going. Now, consequently, you've got your H pill for supporting healthy young stem cells, taking them from senescence into fuller activity, You start growing younger. How can you not, we think, this is our opinion, but how could you not grow younger if you're at a certain age and you've lost 30 or 40% of your body mass and suddenly you can rebuild it? You've got to grow younger. That's what the animal models show, but of course it hasn't been tested on our product with it, but the animal models on the ingredients show that those kinds of things do it in different individual forms. The thing is, with us, we have them all together that we can find to maximize the effectiveness of it for you. So you can see the complication in that. So you've done that. You've got long telomeres. Now the stem cells that are burnt out, that are toxins, that are causing you to age much, much faster and creating the horrible diseases you get that kills you, because you don't die of old age. You die of middle age. You just die of some disease that's kicked in because your body no longer has the ability to function properly, to maintain it where it was, and as a result, at some certain point, your body has deteriorated, decayed, degenerated to the point of where the disease kicks in that's going to kill you. Well, we're not talking about disease prevention. What we're talking about is cellular maintenance and supporting regeneration of that cell so it can do what it did when you were young, and that's the goal we're going back to. So the product X is a blend of products we have, and like I say, it'll be a new name for it, but when it's out, it will be very effective in senolytics for the dormant senescent stem cells. Now, there's another one of the world's leading laboratories that is researching but one of the ingredients that we have in ours, and they're saying, just like this other one did, research university did, where they said NAD plus is the immortality molecule, they're saying this senolytic ingredient is the immortality molecule. So which is? Well, the answer is neither, but together it puts you blazing down the road of immortality if you can get that rubber band wound, those telomeres long, with the TSX. You're going to fly along that one. Then you come in and you empower it with hydrogen to give it the power of the sun that you can flood your body with it 2 or 3 times a day. What is going to happen to you? Well, in my opinion, lots of great stuff. What's going to happen to you if you don't? Well, it ain't going to get better, and it's going to get a lot worse and a lot faster, and you're going to die maybe for your life is your potential is half lived. But you now can take it. Let's say you're 70 and you got 10 years to live. And those are going to be the worst 10 years of your life, aren't they? If you're 60, you got 20 to live, and they're the worst 20 years of your life. But suppose that your biology could be restored, all the biological indicators, back to when they're like you were 20 again. What would happen to that 60-year-old body? You might double or triple the potential lifespan you have, because the genetic code will allow it. You just need the proper nutrients and those things to make it function. And so that's what we're doing with this. So now we come back to the things that I talked about from the very beginning. There are organisms 500 million, 1 billion years old in the sea. They have found some now they can send into space, and space where you get absolute zero. And of course, they kind of shrivel up, protect themselves. They bring them back from that cold after being out a year, and they've done that. And they found they come back. They can put them in the hot, boiling water. They don't boil. They just protect themselves. And so how does this happen? And they're virtually immortal with this thing. It's because that within it, it has the God-given biological structures to function, to counteract those things, to keep them from happening. We're not talking on as elaborate a scale as what that is, but what we're talking about is taking your aging body that is deteriorating, degenerating, and you're becoming what you don't want to be, and restoring those biological factors and functionalities with the super nutrients that we can provide, so that you have a massive influx of the power of youth, of regeneration, of revitalization, and we can take the declining stem cells and the dormant stem cells, and that field of flowers can come back. you can have them. I don't know, we haven't tested it to say, but in theory, wouldn't it be great to get them back to where you were when you're 20 again? What would you have? You now have the ability to live to a great length of life at a very young age. And with this latest breakthrough that we have in senolytics, with the H-Fill, with TSX, and powered by hydrogen, there is no combination, even of an individual product, there's nothing that matches anyone that we does. And you put all of these together, what do you have? You don't have immortality, but I'll tell you what, you're flying down that road, and you're going to go a lot longer on it, in my opinion. So I'll publish a bunch of more things on it to give you some more information. So if you get on MeWe.com, you'll be able to see what I publish. And maybe some of those things will help you. I know this has been, I talk fast and it's an elaborate discussion, but I've tried to put it to you in ways that you can hear it from enough different angles so that you're impressed with the fundamental way that it operates and works for you, so you can explain that. So you have to listen to the tape a few times, make some notes, do a few things like that. Wouldn't you do that if you're going to school? Well, you know what? This is sort of your schooling so that you can go to success. And if you have this kind of knowledge, it's power. But then the personality with it is what drives it. So if you take your personality, if you're persistent, you stick with it, you work hard with it, you have products like this, with a compensation plan like this, what have you got? I quote Trump, what have you got to lose? What have you got to gain? The world, your life, your youth, your vitality, all those things that you want in life are there at your fingertips, but it's for you to go out and do it. We can't make any guarantees, but we can sure provide you the tools that you can do it with, we believe. And I'm totally dedicated for the rest of my very long life to doing just that, to helping you to make your lives better. And that's my presentation for today. Back to you, D.